Surah Al-Fatiha, the chapter that can change the way you pray forever. Every single day you recite one chapter at least 17 times. You stand in prayer. You pronounce its words with your lips. But have you ever stopped to wonder, could these 7 short verses contain the blueprint for your entire life? Within this chapter lies your relationship with Allah. Within it lies the guidance for your journey. And within it is a prayer so profound that every prophet and messenger called upon Allah with the same essence. Today we're going beyond the surface. We'll explore Surah Al-Fatiha word by word through its history, its linguistic beauty, its spiritual depth, its psychological wisdom, and its relevance to your everyday life. By the end of this video, the next time you recite Surah Al-Fatiha in your prayer, you may never experience it the same way again. So let's begin our journey into the heart of the Holy Quran, Surah Al-Fatiha. A story of guidance. On the edge of a vast desert stood a small village. There lived an elderly traveler named Ibrahim. For many years he wandered from place to place with patience and faith, never fully certain where his destination truly was. Then one night he became completely lost in the middle of the desert. Darkness surrounded him. There was no road, no light, no direction, only endless sand stretching into the night. Exhausted, he fell to his knees and looked toward the heavens. With sincerity, he whispered, "My Lord, I do not know which path to take. You alone can guide me. Show me the straight path." Moments later, a tiny light appeared in the distance. It was the fire of a passing caravan. Following that light, Ibrahim found his way to safety. The scholar's lesson. The following day, Ibrahim visited a respected Islamic scholar and shared his incredible experience. The scholar smiled gently and replied, "Do you realize what you said last night? You prayed, 'Guide me to the straight path.' That is the very heart of Surah Al-Fatiha." The old traveler looked astonished. "I never knew that." The scholar continued, "Every human life is like a night in the desert. We all become lost at times. And Surah Al-Fatiha is the prayer Allah Himself taught us to recite whenever we lose our way. The true power of Surah Al-Fatiha. From that night onward, every time Ibrahim recited Surah Al-Fatiha in his prayer, he imagined himself standing once again in the silent desert, searching for guidance, calling upon his Creator, trusting only Him to lead the way. That is the true power of Surah Al-Fatiha. It is not merely something to be recited. It is a conversation between the servant and the Lord of the worlds. The meaning of the name Al-Fatiha. The Arabic word Al-Fatiha, Al-Fatiha, comes from the root word Fataha, Fatah, which means to open, to begin, to unlock, to initiate. For this reason, Surah Al-Fatiha is known as the opening. It is the opening chapter of the Holy Quran and the chapter with which every unit of prayer begins. It serves as the gateway to the message of Islam and introduces the central themes that unfold throughout the entire Quran. Literal meaning of the 7 verses. Verse 1. In the name of Allah, the most compassionate, the most merciful. Verse 2. All praise belongs to Allah, the Lord and sustainer of all worlds. Verse 3. The most compassionate, the most merciful. Verse 4, Master of the Day of Judgment. Verse 5, You alone we worship, and you alone we ask for help. Verse 6, Guide us to the straight path. Verse 7, The path of those whom you have blessed, not of those who earned your anger, nor of those who went astray. The many names of Surah Al-Fatiha. Throughout Islamic tradition, this remarkable chapter has been honored with several beautiful names. It is called al-Quran, the mother of the Quran, because it summarizes the essence of the entire Quran. Asab al-Mathani, the 7 oft-repeated verses, because Muslims recite it repeatedly in every prayer. As-Salah, the prayer, because no obligatory prayer is complete without it. Ash-Shifa, the cure, because of its spiritual healing and blessings. Each of these names reflects a different dimension of its extraordinary significance. Historical background, reason for revelation. According to the majority of classical scholars, Surah Al-Fatiha was revealed in Makkah and is regarded as the first complete chapter of the Quran to be revealed. When Prophet Muhammad received the first revelation in the cave of Hira, the experience was overwhelming. After the initial revelation, there was a temporary pause in revelation, a period known as Fatrat al-Wahi. During this difficult time, the Prophet experienced deep concern and anticipation. It was then that Allah revealed Surah Al-Fatiha as a complete and perfect prayer, a divine conversation that would become the foundation of every Muslim's daily worship. The chapter begins with praise of Allah, continues with acknowledgement of His mercy and sovereignty, declares complete devotion to Him alone, and concludes with a heartfelt plea for guidance. Classical scholars, including Imam Ibn Kathir, explain that this structure teaches believers the ideal way to make supplication. First, praise your Lord, then acknowledge your dependence upon Him. Finally, ask Him for what your heart truly needs. And perhaps that is why, after more than 14 centuries, millions of believers continue to find hope, guidance, and peace in these 7 timeless verses. Classical Tafsir and scholarly interpretations. Imam Ibn Kathir, Tafsir Ibn Kathir. Imam Ibn Kathir describes Surah Al-Fatiha as the summary of the entire Quran. He explains that the structure of this chapter perfectly encapsulates the foundations of Islamic belief. The first 3 verses introduce Allah and His divine attributes of mercy and lordship. The 4th verse affirms His absolute authority as the master of the Day of Judgment. The 5th verse establishes the believer's complete devotion and dependence upon Allah alone. Finally, the last 2 verses become a heartfelt supplication for guidance. According to Ibn Kathir, these 7 verses present the entire Islamic creed in its most concise and comprehensive form. Imam al-Qurtubi, while explaining the verse, "Guide us to the straight path," Imam al-Qurtubi highlights a profound lesson. This prayer is not only for ordinary believers. Even the prophets and messengers continually sought Allah's guidance. Why? Because guidance is not a destination that is reached once and for all. It is an ongoing journey. Receiving guidance is one blessing, but remaining steadfast upon it requires constant prayer, humility, and reliance upon Allah. Every time a believer recites this verse, they renew their commitment to stay on the path of truth. Imam Fakhr al-Din al-Razi, Tafsir al-Kabir. Imam al-Razi draws attention to the 2 beautiful names of Allah, Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim. Although both are translated as the most merciful, they convey different dimensions of divine mercy. Ar-Rahman refers to Allah's universal mercy that embraces all of creation, believers and non-believers alike, humans, animals, and every living creature. Ar-Rahim, however, refers to His special and everlasting mercy reserved for those who believe and seek His guidance. Together, these names remind humanity that Allah's compassion is both universal and deeply personal. Sayyid Qutb fi Zilal al-Quran. The renowned contemporary scholar Sayyid Qutb approaches Surah Al-Fatiha from a modern perspective. He explains that this chapter teaches humanity how to build a complete philosophy of life. It begins by establishing the relationship between the individual and the Creator. It then defines the purpose of worship, dependence, accountability, and ultimately the direction every human being should pursue. In just 7 verses, Surah Al-Fatiha offers a complete worldview that shapes faith, ethics, and daily living. Prophetic traditions about Surah Al-Fatiha. Hadith 1. The greatest chapter of the Quran. The Prophet Muhammad once asked Abu Sa'id ibn al-Mu'alla, "Shall I teach you the greatest surah in the Quran before you leave the mosque?" Then he recited Surah Al-Fatiha. This narration is recorded in Sahih al-Bukhari, emphasizing the unparalleled status of this chapter among all the surahs of the Quran. Hadith 2, essential for prayer. The Messenger of Allah said, "There is no prayer for the one who does not recite Surah Al-Fatiha." Recorded in both Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim, this hadith establishes Surah Al-Fatiha as an essential pillar of the daily prayer. Without it, the prayer remains incomplete. Hadith 3, the chapter of healing. On one occasion, a companion recited Surah Al-Fatiha over a man who had been stung by a poisonous scorpion. By Allah's permission, the man recovered. When the incident was later mentioned to the Prophet Iyaz, he smiled and asked, "How did you know that it is a means of healing, ruqya?" This narration, found in Sahih al-Bukhari, highlights the spiritual significance of Surah Al-Fatiha as a source of comfort and healing by Allah's will. Hadith 4, a conversation between Allah and His servant. Among the most remarkable narrations regarding Surah Al-Fatiha is the sacred hadith recorded in Sahih Muslim. Allah says, "I have divided the prayer between myself and my servant into two halves." When the servant says, "All praise belongs to Allah, the Lord of all worlds," Allah responds, "My servant has praised me." With every verse that follows, Allah answers His servant. This extraordinary hadith reveals that reciting Surah Al-Fatiha is not merely reading words from a page, it is a living dialogue, a direct conversation between the believer and the Lord of the worlds. Hadith 5, the mother of the Quran. The Prophet described Surah Al-Fatiha as Al-Quran, the mother of the Quran, Al-Kitab, the mother of the book, As-Sab al-Mathani, the 7 oft-repeated verses. These titles reflect its central position within Islamic worship and its comprehensive message that summarizes the essence of the Quran. The social dimension of Surah Al-Fatiha. One of the most remarkable linguistic features of this chapter appears in the verse, "You alone we worship, and you alone we ask for help." Notice that the Quran uses the word "we" instead of "I." This choice teaches a profound social lesson. Islam encourages believers to think beyond themselves and to view worship as a collective bond that unites the community. When a Muslim prays, they are not asking only for their own guidance. They pray for the guidance and well-being of the entire Ummah. Surah Al-Fatiha promotes unity by reminding believers that they stand together before Allah. Equality where rich and poor, powerful and weak, black and white are all equal in worship. Collective responsibility through the prayer that guide us to the straight path, which reflects concern for the welfare of the entire community rather than individual interests alone. The economic perspective. Allah is described as Lord of all the worlds. This declaration carries profound economic implications. It teaches that Allah is the ultimate owner of all wealth and resources, while human beings are merely trustees entrusted with their care. From this principle emerge key foundations of Islamic economics. Fair distribution of wealth, recognizing that resources should be shared with justice and compassion. The institution of zakat, reminding believers that giving from their wealth is an expression of gratitude and obedience to Allah. Reliance upon Allah, reflected in the verse, "You alone we ask for help." While Islam encourages hard work and planning, it teaches that true success ultimately comes from Allah. This mindset protects believers from greed, dishonesty, and unethical financial practices. The political philosophy of Surah Al-Fatiha. The verse, "Master of the Day of Judgment," establishes one of the most profound principles of Islamic political thought. Ultimate authority belongs to Allah alone. No king, president, ruler, or government possesses absolute power. Every human authority remains accountable before the Creator. This belief serves as a safeguard against tyranny and abuse of power. It reminds leaders that one day they too will stand before the divine judge. Likewise, the prayer, "Guide us to the straight path," extends beyond personal spirituality. It is also a plea for justice, integrity, and righteous leadership in society. It calls for a social order founded upon truth, accountability, and compassion, rather than oppression or dictatorship. In this way, Surah Al-Fatiha offers not only a guide for individual faith, but also timeless principles for building a just and ethical civilization. Scientific perspectives on Surah Al-Fatiha. Modern neuroscience introduces a concept known as repetition priming, the idea that repeatedly expressing a message strengthens the neural pathways associated with it. Surah Al-Fatiha is recited at least 17 times every day by practicing Muslims. This constant repetition gradually builds a lasting cognitive framework within the mind, where gratitude, humility, dependence on God, and a sense of purpose become deeply ingrained habits rather than occasional thoughts. In other words, every recitation reinforces a mindset centered on faith and guidance. Scientific studies suggest that slow, rhythmic recitation combined with controlled breathing activates the parasympathetic nervous system, the part of the body responsible for relaxation and recovery. This activation helps lower cortisol, the body's primary stress hormone, and promotes feelings of calm and emotional balance. The unique rhythm and phonetic structure of Surah Al-Fatiha naturally encourage this breathing pattern, making its recitation not only spiritually uplifting but also psychologically soothing. Modern psychology has demonstrated the effectiveness of positive affirmations in improving emotional well-being. Surah Al-Fatiha follows a remarkably similar structure. It begins with praise and gratitude, moves to recognition of divine authority, and concludes with a sincere request for guidance. This sequence mirrors a healthy psychological process that shifts the mind from appreciation to trust to purposeful action. Long before modern psychology identified these principles, Surah Al-Fatiha embodied them in a timeless spiritual framework, a framework for ethical governance. Although Surah Al-Fatiha is primarily a spiritual chapter, it also symbolically reflects the foundations of a just society. The source of sovereignty. The phrase, Lord of all the worlds, declares that ultimate sovereignty belongs to Allah alone. Human governments and institutions merely exercise delegated authority. This principle establishes moral limits on power and reminds every leader that no earthly authority is absolute. Accountability, the declaration, Master of the Day of Judgment, teaches that every decision and every action will ultimately be judged by Allah. For rulers and leaders, this belief serves as a powerful ethical safeguard against corruption, oppression, and abuse of authority. Collective participation. The repeated use of the plural pronouns, we worship, we seek help, emphasizes collective responsibility rather than individual isolation. It reflects the Islamic principle of consultation, shura, and encourages cooperation, shared decision-making, and community participation in public affairs. The universal message of Surah Al-Fatiha. One of the most profound expressions in this chapter is, Lord of all the worlds. This single phrase demonstrates the universal nature of Islam. The message of the Quran is not limited to a particular race, nationality, or geographic region. It addresses all of humanity and indeed all of creation. In international relations, this verse reminds us that justice, compassion, and human dignity transcend political borders and ethnic identities. Likewise, the prayer, the path of those upon whom you have bestowed your favor, points toward a universal brotherhood of righteous people, one that rises above race, language, culture, and nationality. Historical significance. Throughout Islamic history, Surah Al-Fatiha has occupied a central place in the lives of al-Muslimin. During the lifetime of Prophet Muhammad, it was not only recited in prayer but was also used as a form of spiritual healing through ruqya, as demonstrated by the companions. In the era of the caliphates, official correspondence and treaties commonly began with Bismillah, reflecting the principles introduced in this opening chapter. Over the centuries, Muslim scholars authored hundreds of commentaries dedicated solely to Surah Al-Fatiha, making it one of the most extensively studied chapters in Islamic scholarship. Its influence has shaped theology, law, spirituality, and civilization for more than 14 centuries. Its relevance in the modern world. In today's fast-paced digital age, marked by anxiety, information overload, and uncertainty, Surah Al-Fatiha offers timeless guidance. As mental health challenges continue to rise across the world, the words, "You alone we ask for help," provide a powerful reminder that no one must carry life's burdens alone. In an age flooded with conflicting opinions and endless information, the prayer, "Guide us to the straight path," offers clarity, direction, and purpose. And in an increasingly interconnected world, the concept of Lord of all the worlds promotes coexistence, mutual respect, and compassion among diverse cultures and societies. Looking toward the future. The wisdom of Surah Al-Fatiha may become even more significant in the years ahead. As artificial intelligence and advanced technology become increasingly integrated into daily life, humanity may be tempted to place ultimate trust in machines. Yet this chapter gently reminds us, you alone we ask for help. Technology can assist us, but our ultimate dependence belongs to Allah alone. As climate change and global environmental challenges intensify, recognizing Allah as Lord of all the worlds inspires humanity to care for the earth as a sacred trust rather than a resource to exploit. For future generations, Surah Al-Fatiha will continue to serve as a timeless moral compass, offering ethical guidance that remains relevant regardless of how rapidly the world changes. Connections with modern psychology. Surprisingly, many principles found in contemporary psychology closely align with the structure of Surah Al-Fatiha. Gratitude practice. The opening declaration, "All praise belongs to Allah," encourages gratitude. Research in positive psychology consistently shows that practicing gratitude improves emotional resilience, reduces symptoms of depression, and enhances overall well-being. Reframing the locus of control. The statement, "You alone we ask for help," helps individuals shift from believing they must bear every burden alone to trusting in a higher source of support. This perspective can reduce feelings of helplessness and psychological stress. Purpose and goal orientation. The prayer, "Guide us to the straight path," reflects a purpose-driven mindset. Studies suggest that people with a clear sense of direction and meaning experience greater happiness, stronger resilience, and even longer life expectancy. Mindfully reciting Surah Al-Fatiha at least 17 times a day naturally cultivates focused awareness. This practice resembles modern mindfulness techniques used in therapeutic settings to reduce anxiety and improve emotional regulation. Rather than allowing the mind to wander endlessly, the believer repeatedly reconnects with gratitude, dependence upon Allah, and purposeful living. Practical ways to apply Surah Al-Fatiha in daily life. 1. Recite with reflection. Instead of rushing through the verses during prayer, pause mentally and reflect on the meaning of each verse. Even practicing this for 1 week can transform the quality of your worship. 2. Begin your morning with its message. After Fajr prayer, spend a few moments contemplating the supplication, "Guide me to the straight path today." Allow this intention to shape your decisions throughout the day. 3. Seek guidance during difficult decisions. Whenever faced with uncertainty, recite Surah Al-Fatiha sincerely and ask Allah to guide you toward the best choice. Its message becomes especially powerful in moments of confusion. 4. Follow the sunnah of spiritual healing. During times of physical illness or emotional distress, recite Surah Al-Fatiha and seek healing from Allah, following the prophetic tradition of Ruqya. 5. Practice daily gratitude before going to sleep each night. Say, "Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen," and reflect on 3 blessings from your day. This simple habit strengthens gratitude and nurtures inner peace. An emotional reflection. At some point in life, every one of us becomes like Ibrahim, standing alone in the darkness of the desert, lost, confused, surrounded by uncertainty. But Surah Al-Fatiha reminds us that in those moments, we are never truly alone. Within just 7 short verses lies the recognition of our Creator, the humility of His servant, the unity of a community, the foundation of justice, the ethics of society, the universality of humanity, and above all, a timeless prayer that continues to echo in the hearts of believers across every generation. The next time you stand in prayer and recite, "Guide us to the straight path," pause for a moment. Feel the weight of those words. You are not merely reciting a verse, you are sending the deepest prayer of your soul to the Lord of all creation. A prayer that says, "My Lord, Amanit, guide me," and He is listening. Closing. If this journey through Surah Al-Fatiha has touched your heart and deepened your understanding of the Quran, be sure to subscribe and join us for our next in-depth exploration of another remarkable surah. Tell us in the comments, which verse of Surah Al-Fatiha speaks to your heart the most and why? May Allah guide us all to the straight path, strengthen our faith, and fill our hearts with His mercy. Ameen.